A Lego Otto Langen vacuum engine. I'll admit, I've grown a wee bit tired of solenoid engines for now. I wanted to try something different. So I've been looking at this Otto Langen atmospheric engine. It's a really cool design. Not an easy design to implement in Lego, however, but I want to tackle it. I also want to make it a classic Lego vacuum engine. So here I'm experimenting with the valve design. The cylinder was easy, just a square block in a square tube really. However, the valve design was quite a bit harder. I tried this piece first, but ultimately that wouldn't work properly since it needed to be vacuumed. This was a pretty good idea, using a flat piece with holes to let the air through and then a flat piece to block the air, but ultimately that didn't really work either. Ultimately, I settled for this piece. The idea behind it is that there are two passages at the top and bottom of the cylinder. The valve will block either one of these passages, allowing air through. This should move the cylinder up and down, at least in theory. Let's see how it works in practice. So this is the first test. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that works pretty well. It has a decent amount of power behind it, so I went to the next stage, the top assembly. The top assembly consists of a rack that moves up and down with the cylinder, which has a chain attached to two gears. This in turn turns the main gear. And this is version 1 of the final assembly. I used a simple assembly with a gear that rests on another gear, so it will only power the flywheel in one direction. And this works pretty well. I did have some issues with the chain skipping over the gear, so I had to tighten things up a bit. This friction ultimately also led to problems, which you'll see later. And here you can see the bottom view of the engine, with the valve moving up and down. The valve will block the air passage momentarily every time it moves down. And there you can see the cylinder moving in its housing. And here I'm playing with the idea for the valve system. By having that rubber band there, it will pull the valve in either direction and keep it locked there. It was a cool idea, but ultimately it wasn't very useful, as it turned out. And here I'm doing the first manual test of the engine, just moving the valve by hand. And as you can see, it's not very successful. Piston has trouble moving up and down, and there's definitely not enough pressure on it. So it seems I need to revise my design a little bit. Well, it turns out I made a little mistake with the valve, especially at the bottom. The hole where the airway to the cylinder is wasn't at the right height, thus the airflow wasn't proper at all. So I fixed that now, and hopefully it works a little bit better. Yep, that's already better. It's not great yet though. So there's still some improvements that can be made. And this is the first major change really. This really made the engine work a lot better. Instead of a rack and a gear, I used a wheel and a rubber belt. Thus the rack could move more freely, and less friction is always a good case in an engine. There was also no longer a gear skipping issue, and everything just feels smoother overall. So let's test this one. I've added a temporary valve gear, and let's see how that runs. Okay, let's fire it up. Come on, Betsy. And there she finally goes. Well, let's watch it running for a while. Okay, that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next video, where I'll update this engine to use a proper Otto Langen valve gear.